Brian May was born in Hampton, England in 1947. From an early age, he showed a strong interest in music and science. His father, Harold, was an electronics engineer, and his influence shaped Brian's love for building things. But music was always in his heart. At school, Brian became fascinated with the guitar. However, his family couldn't afford expensive instruments. Instead of giving up, he decided to make his own guitar with his father's help. This creation would later become one of the most famous guitars in rock history, the Red Special. Built from old wood and spare parts, it gave Brian a unique sound that no other guitarist had. At the same time, Brian excelled in school, especially in mathematics and physics. He dreamed of one day becoming an astronomer, but music was calling louder. By the late 1960s, Brian had formed his first bands, experimenting with sounds that would shape his future. These early years laid the foundation for the mix of brains, creativity, and passion that would make Brian May more than just a guitarist. He would become a rock legend. Brian May's guitar, the Red Special, deserves its own story. Unlike ordinary guitars bought from shops, this instrument was a product of love, creativity, and necessity. Brian and his father started building it in the early 1960s. They used unusual materials: wood from an old fireplace, a knitting needle for the tremolo arm, and motorbike valve springs. Every detail was carefully crafted by hand. The Red Special was not just a guitar, it was a piece of Brian himself. Its unique tone would later help define the sound of Queen. Brian once said he wanted a guitar that could sing like a human voice, and the Red Special allowed him to do just that. The instrument became his lifelong partner. He still plays it today, decades later. In fact, when Queen rose to fame, big companies like Fender and Gibson tried to tempt him with offers of their guitars. But Brian never replaced the Red Special. It had its flaws, but it carried his soul. This homemade guitar symbolized Brian May's determination. When you don't have the resources, you create your own. Without the Red Special, Queen's music might never have sounded the same. In the late 1960s, Brian May was searching for the right band. He first played in a group called Smile, alongside drummer Roger Taylor. They gained some attention, but never truly broke through. Then a charismatic singer named Freddie Mercury entered the picture. Freddie had wild energy, a powerful voice, and a vision for a band bigger than anything before. He convinced Brian and Roger to join him. Later, bassist John Deacon completed the lineup. Together, they became Queen. At first, record companies didn't understand them. Their songs were too long, too dramatic, too unusual. But Brian believed in their blend of rock, opera, and showmanship. In 1973, Queen released their first album. It wasn't a huge hit, but it marked the beginning of something legendary. Brian contributed not only with his guitar, but also with his songwriting and harmonies. The band pushed limits, experimenting with sound in ways no one else dared. By the mid-1970s, Queen was becoming one of the biggest bands in the world. Behind the dazzling lights and Freddie's charisma, Brian May's guitar was always at the heart of the storm. One of Queen's greatest achievements was Bohemian Rhapsody. Released in 1975, it was unlike any song before. Written mainly by Freddie Mercury, the track was 6 minutes long, blending opera, rock, and ballad into one masterpiece. Most radio stations didn't want to play it because it was too long for the charts. But Queen believed in it, and when the song was released, it became a global sensation. Brian May's role in the song was crucial. His soaring guitar solo gave the song its emotional punch. That solo wasn't just notes, it was storytelling. Each note carried emotion, almost like another voice in the opera. On stage, Bohemian Rhapsody became a Queen trademark. The audience would sing the opera part while the band powered through the rock section. It proved that Queen wasn't just another rock band. They were creators of art. The success of Bohemian Rhapsody lifted Queen into the stratosphere, making them one of the biggest bands of the 1970s. And at the core of it all, Brian May's guitar helped turn an impossible idea into a timeless classic. Even as Queen's fame exploded, Brian May never let go of his love for science. Before joining Queen full-time, he had studied physics and mathematics at Imperial College London. His passion for astronomy stayed with him, even as the band toured the world. Sometimes fans were surprised to see a rock star who was also deeply fascinated by the universe. Brian was living a double life. On one side, he was a guitarist rocking stadiums. On the other, he was a thinker, always curious about stars and galaxies. In later years, after Queen's success, Brian returned to his academic roots. He completed his PhD in astrophysics in 2007, more than 30 years after starting it. His thesis focused on dust clouds in space. It showed the world that Brian May wasn't just a musician, he was also a serious scientist. For him, the stars above Wathius are just as inspiring as the music on stage. This unique balance made Brian one of the most unusual rock legends in history, someone who could command a stadium of 80,000 fans and then spend the next day studying the mysteries of the universe. Brian May wasn't only Queen's guitarist, he was also one of the band's main songwriters. His songs were different, emotional, powerful, and often deeply personal. One of his most famous contributions was "We Will Rock You." The song's stomp, stomp, clap rhythm was designed to make audiences feel like part of the music. Brian wanted fans to join in, and they did. To this day, the song is sung at sports events and stadiums around the world. Another classic written by Brian was "The Show Must Go On." Released in 1991, it reflected Freddie Mercury's struggles with illness, but also his determination to keep performing. Brian's writing often carried hope, strength, and emotion. He also wrote hits like "Fat Bottom Girls," "Hammer to Fall," and "I Want It All." Each song had his signature mix of heavy rock riffs and thoughtful lyrics. Through songwriting, Brian showed his heart and mind. He wasn't just playing guitar, he was shaping Queen's identity. His ability to combine intellect with raw emotion made his songs unforgettable. In July 1985, Queen performed at Live Aid, the massive charity concert in London's Wembley Stadium. It was one of the biggest live events in music history, broadcast to millions worldwide. Many bands performed that day, but Queen's set became legendary. From the opening chords of Bohemian Rhapsody to the final note of "We Are the Champions," Queen electrified the crowd. Freddie Mercury commanded the stage, but Brian May's guitar was just as powerful. His solos soared across Wembley, uniting the audience. For 20 minutes, Queen reminded the world why they were one of the greatest bands ever. Music historians still call it the best live performance of all time. For Brian, it was a career highlight. He later said he could feel the energy of the crowd in a way that was almost supernatural. Live Aid wasn't just about music, it was about emotion, unity, and power. Queen stole the show, and Brian May's guitar helped make it unforgettable. The performance cemented Queen's place in rock history, proving that even after years of success, they could still deliver magic when it mattered most. The late 1980s and early 1990s brought dark times for Queen. Freddie Mercury was diagnosed with AIDS, a disease that carried fear and stigma in those years. Brian and the band supported Freddie as much as possible, continuing to make music even as his health declined. In 1991, Freddie passed away. For Brian, it was a devastating loss. Not only had he lost a bandmate, but also a dear friend. Queen seemed to come to an end. During this time, Brian also faced personal struggles in his own life, including depression. Yet he found strength in music. He released solo albums such as Back to the Light in 1992, which included the emotional song Too Much Love Will Kill You. His solo career helped him heal, but the shadow of Freddie remained. Brian later said that Freddie's spirit still lived in every performance of Queen's songs. Despite the darkness, Brian kept moving forward. He honored Freddie's memory by continuing the music. His resilience showed the world that even in loss, there can be strength and hope. After decades of music, Brian May returned fully to his love for science. He co-authored books on astronomy, including Bang, The Complete History of the Universe. He worked with NASA and even took part in space missions, studying asteroids and distant worlds. His passion inspired young people to see that science and art can live side by side. At the same time, Brian never left music behind. He continued performing with Roger Taylor under the name Queen Plus, first with Paul Rodgers and later with Adam Lambert as the lead singer. These tours brought Queen's music to a new generation. Brian balanced his double identity, rock legend and astrophysicist, with pride. He showed that you don't have to choose just one path in life. You can follow all your passions if you have the courage. For Brian, looking up at the stars and standing on stage were part of the same journey. Both were about connection, whether with the universe or with millions of fans. His return to science proved that his story was far from over. Today, Brian May is more than a guitarist. He is an inventor, songwriter, scientist, and humanitarian. His contributions to music with Queen shaped rock history forever. His guitar, the Red Special, still roars on stage, carrying the sound he created as a teenager. His songs continue to inspire, from the stadium anthem "We Will Rock You" to the powerful "The Show Must Go On." Beyond music, Brian's achievements in astronomy and his work for animal rights have earned him respect far beyond the rock world. He is Sir Brian May, knighted for his services to music and charity. His legacy is not only about fame, but also about passion and persistence. He showed the world that you can build greatness with your own hands, whether it's a guitar, a song, or a dream. For generations to come, Brian May will be remembered not just as Queen's guitarist, but as a man who reached for the stars, both on stage and in the universe.